Hello, I am Steve Garrett. Thank you for joining us tonight on We Are Change Fresno TV. Today is a great broadcast as usual. We are joined by a great patriot today. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an instance where we can celebrate a little bit. We have had a local victory against tyranny in the city of Fresno. Absolutely amazing, something to be glad about. But, you know, the battle is not over. We're going to continue to forge ahead, which we will talk about later on in the show. But the Fresno water rates that were increased last year have been repealed. And we are going back to mid-2013 water rates. And it is in a large part to Mr. Doug Vagim, former Fresno County Board of Supervisor, who is joining us tonight. And so we literally salute this man, and I give a big thank you to Mr. Vagim for standing up against tyranny. Just a local example of what happens when government is literally going wild. They do not care necessarily what the public is thinking, because the majority of the public is asleep. And at a federal level, the federal government is out of control, and there's really no reining in the federal government. It's very, very difficult. But here in the city of Fresno, one man stood up when they were voting to increase the water rates, and he made a big difference. And he vowed to make them regret the decision of increasing the water rates. And this was in 2013. And through his hard work and others' hard work, they're volunteering and pushing forward to try to get signatures, they've had a victory. And he did accomplish what he set out to do. And the city council had to basically, they voted to repeal the water rates on July 31st, 2014. And it was absolutely awesome. And so standing up to tyranny is hard work. It is not easy, as I'm sure Mr. Vagim can tell you. There's been probably many nights where he's, just laid in bed thinking about, am I going to be able to pull this out? Are we going to be able to pull this off? And he has sacrificed time, energy, all for the folks of Fresno, and for literally freedom and the ability for the people to decide how they will govern themselves. This ideal that we hold true to and we talk about in classrooms as we're growing up in political science and all these other things, but this man has literally labored to have that ideal here in the city of Fresno, at least on this issue of water rates. So, we had great success. Over 5,500 signatures were validated by the Fresno County Clerk's Office, and it did qualify the measure to be put on the November ballot, but through whatever happened, I don't know exactly what all happened, but on July 31st, after pressure being put on the city council voted to repeal the water rate increase going back to mid-2013 levels. And gathering those signatures was not easy. Many volunteers took their time, but it also took Doug Vagim also employing the services of professional signature gatherers, and that cost money. And we do need help with donations to pay for that service that was paid for getting the word out to the public of Fresno, and going out there in front of stores and educating the public and talking with them. This took money, folks. And and many people were educated and shocked and didn't even know really. They were shocked because the mainstream media, many of them in our city, were not getting the news out to the public. They were not focusing on this issue. Only Gene Hagenson from ABC 30. We give credit to that gentleman because he actually did shed light on this subject and try to get the word out to the public. So we give him credit. But this effort and this success took a lot of money, and Doug Vagim just kind of said, well, it's got to be done, and he did what needed to be done, giving what he had, and even taking out debt possibly, to basically get this done and to get the people in the city of Fresno to have the right to decide. He stood up. I literally, we honor the military for going overseas. A lot of these young men who are really pumped up to go overseas and defend freedom. Well, you know what? We got a patriot right here who defended freedom, and I've been talking way too long. And so let's let Doug say something. But yes, Doug. So where do we go to donate, Doug?
Well, thank you. Is the show over? No, listen, thank you. Look, I just had the, I guess, knowledge and also the understanding of the issue that I decided to take it back to a community that I used to serve as a county board member. And I asked them to join me in getting signatures to use a process the California Constitution has guaranteed the citizens of this state the ability to have redress against their government. And in this case, when the rates go up to the degree that they've gone up, and for what it impacts that you could obviously see around our community to that, those rate increases, it was time to just roll up our sleeves and ask for them to honor the process. Unfortunately, the city didn't honor the process. They sued us to stop us from doing that, but we prevailed at every step. We've come a long way. We came a long way to the point where the city council voted 6-0. One gentleman was out of town, but we did vote to have an agreement to not only rescind the rates, which is what the vote would have done if it was on the ballot, but also to do a new noticing process in which the people of this community that have water bills coming to them now will get a notice, and the people who own property who don't even live in the community who under Proposition 218 are also participants in any 218 voting experience. Mm-hmm. Everybody will get this new notice, and it will be very noticeable notice. It will stand out like a jury duty. You know, when you get a jury duty, it stands out on your tabletop when you get it from your mailbox. This is the way this is supposed to look. We have a little bit of work to do to make sure it looks that way.
Yeah, that's great.
But we've kind of tried to spell it out in the settlement how it should look. But it also has one big other factor. It was one of my biggest concerns. And not only didn't the tenant get one, this time they will get one, but also the return apparatus was so cumbersome to the degree that somebody had to have a scratch paper, a white 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper handy or something, and start writing a letter.
Oh, yeah.
And stating that you have a protest to this, and then getting an actual stamp and putting it on it, getting an envelope and writing it all on there, which most people just
They're not going to take the time to do that.
No, and most people don't even have stamps anymore. You know, they all use the internet email and
Right.
stuff.
Pay bills.
And pay their bills online and all that kind of stuff. But the fact that we were able to get the city to agree to, let's say, really update that process, I think will be the model of California, to be honest with you, where that process only has to be a protest notice. It's not a ballot. It has to be more than 50% of those who pay a bill or who own property have to return that. So still a big, big hurdle. But it's going to be much easier where all you have to do is take that, let's just call it a ballot protest, and put a check mark and sign your name and put it back in the envelope. It's got free postage, return guaranteed, with already addresses and everything are already there. And you drop that in the mailbox, it's guaranteed to get back to count your protest vote. You don't have to do much more than that. So we're hoping that people will take a look at those things and really have an opportunity to say, I can count now. All I got to do is do this and put it in the mail and it's done.
Yeah. That's
And
great.
and the county has adopted that over the years for absentee ballots, particularly in the forced mail absentee ballots, are all free mail back. The city does that in areas in which they have what they call an assessment ballot, which is the next step in 218, which these things like sewer, water, and solid waste are exempt from. You can raise rates there, and you're exempt from that
Right.
process. You can't raise rates anyplace else for government services that have to do with something oriented to your property without going to what they call an assessment ballot, where you got to get more yeses than nos before the thing's in. So these exemptions in water, sewer, and solid waste really had let's just say a big loophole in getting people knowledge about what's in front of them. So,
Yeah, the rate increase that might take place.
right.
Yeah.
So we've addressed that, and what we asked for in the agreement that they will say right on the envelope that important information about your utility rate increase, right on there, in 14-point type, no less.
Yeah, looking way different than a water pamphlet brochure. That looking like this is how you water. You water on 2 days, 3 days a week, and during these times. So it's going to look a lot different than just a normal brochure.
People
about
get
the
those.
water.
People get those all the time. They get
Yeah.
them from the city on the water report. They get them on from PG&E.
Yeah.
How great everybody's doing.
Yeah.
Those are pat on the back kind of brochures, and people just toss them most of the time
Yep.
if they got them. The city admitted they didn't even mail to almost half the people that live in single-family homes. So
Yeah.
because they're renters, and the city said, well, if you're a tenant, you don't deserve one of these because only property owners deserve. Well, if you live in Louisiana and you own property in Fresno, you got one of these notices, but you don't pay the utility bill. In Fresno, only the tenant. If the landlord says, tenant, you shall be responsible for utilities, you are responsible
For that bill.
for that bill between you and the city. They should have got a notice.
Yeah.
This time they're going to get a notice. And they're going to get a notice that makes it real easy for them to send it back. They don't have to go look up the address for the city, or they don't have to find it in the brochure, which they did on that last one. So I think we've made a lot of progress there.
And so this change is due to the settlement agreement
Yeah.
that you had with the city of Fresno?
And another major change, of course, was the opened discussion period for the next 6 months, because a cool-down period, we call it, where we're all going to get together and we're going to talk about really what is the information that is available that we, the citizens, haven't seen that need to be discussed. And a lot of things haven't been discussed. Alternative ways to pay for the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Alternative ways of getting water through existing systems that we already have. Do we need to go reinvent the wheel by adding another whole big, expensive system? These have to be discussed, and I think they ought to be discussed with a lot of people at the table with a lot of experience, and I'm hoping that we can get that. Before, then, the citizen advisory and the rate-setting committees of the city used, it was a one-way dialogue. Here's what we got, take it or leave it.
Right.
And then
It was the government giving you the choices to make you feel like, oh, I chose this.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you draw a big old etch on the board and say, now let's follow that etch, and for some reason they always follow it.
Yeah.
Very little sway on the outside of those edges. But look, the other process, of course, was the community take-around, where they went to various community places, schools, et cetera. But that was a one-way show. I mean, it was a stage show. They got up and told everyone, all the citizens showed up, what they're going to get.
Yeah, and I heard at one of these one-way shows, they had at the high school, I believe it was, they brought in the canine dogs, I believe. That's what I heard. They brought in canine dogs.
Yeah, it evaporated into being a lot of other things.
And that's it's like, hey, you better be for this water rate increase, or this dog's gonna get you.
I think the city, it was earnest in what it was trying to do, but it was trying to do it in a quick way. In other words, let's just get it done because they're getting a lot of pressure to get it done.
Yeah.
Because the city's general plan is calling for things that they hadn't called for before. And there's a change in attitude at the planning arena around the leadership of the city of Fresno, where the developers have come back and said, if you're going to make these kind of changes, then you better do something else because you just made it impossible for us. And I believe they kind of went like this. Don't worry, we'll get you what you need.
Yeah.
and that boom, 80 million gallon a day water plant pops up like a little daisy.
Right.
And what I looked at was the cost of that plant, where they wanted to spend something like nearly $379 million building that plant and its infrastructure, the manifold out of it and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That was all oriented with ease to go east. Cities swearing up and down, oh no, it's coming west, it's coming west. Well, we'll see. That's fine, but I just want another way. When they do grow east, they're ready to pay for a little extra infrastructure cost that we in the older part of the community have paid for 7 times.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'll get brand new infrastructure without paying for it but once.
Right. One time, yeah. And so it's going over into the east. Their brand new residents, they're paying only a small fraction of what it costs to make the whole infrastructure.
To get them the water and I see before the developer would have gone out there, and the developers have been good about that. I mean, they tell me what to do is all they want to know. Just tell me what I need to do. Well, what they needed to do before is they went and put a well in. They put up their own money,
right?
And they put in the manifold to get it to the grid system, and then they were paid back as new growth happened in the community. Now they're being told, we're not going to allow you to do that anymore. We don't want you putting more wells in, so you have nothing to do except wait for this water plant. Well, the water plant is not being paid for except for the people who currently use water. So if they're going to make those kind of changes and they're going to make that kind of debt around the people's neck, which is like double the debt, and that's not by me, that's a reporting service by the institutions that study this for bond sales, double the debt of every citizen in Fresno for the water costs to deliver water. I think we need to have a broader and more comprehensive dialogue on how, what, and where we're going to do it, and how we're going to pay for it. And is there going to be a little differential cost to the new homes? And should we have a little bit more differential way of paying for it besides just the linear use? Should we have an assessment under like a school does, so everyone is a stakeholder in the system?
Yeah.
So that the linear cost goes down, so the senior citizens and the impoverished people of this community who own a home can still have a turf and garden and landscape.
Yeah.
I think that's a better way of going, and it's something that needs to be analyzed. It hasn't been analyzed to date, and I just want the city to come back and tell us why they can't do it.
Right.
Versus we just don't even think about it. What they were saying.
And so basically, it was pretty crazy going into July 31st and finally we were all thinking, okay, great, we just want to put it on the ballot so people can decide whether they want the water rates to increase. And they actually, just flat out voted to repeal the water rate increase.
Right.
And that was pretty interesting because on July 17th, 13 days earlier, they voted to make a report about how this was going to affect. It
was a 2-week delay, and it was a political delay to put the mayor into the play, because if they had voted to go to the ballot then, the mayor would have had the opportunity only to veto. If she did nothing, it would have been on November. If they waited 2 weeks, if she did nothing, it would have been on June. If she would have had to sign it to be on November, and vetoing would have put it on June. So a veto or doing nothing would be June, when they did it on the 31st.
Right.
She'd have to sign it to be in November.
Right.
If they did it on the 17th, she'd either have to sign it to be on, if she wanted to weigh in. She didn't have to weigh in for it to be on November if they did it on the 17th.
Right.
Or she could have vetoed it.
Right.
Always had, and it would have been on June.
Yeah, so it was basically putting it on her so then she could sign off on it.
They wanted her to have some stake in the game,
Yeah.
and that's fine. I mean, that's the politics that are played, and we understand that. In the end of the day, what we have is something that is faith-oriented, that the city will live up to their side of the bargain in good faith and in honor, and not remorse, and not be bitter, that we really begin anew, and that we really take all data and show everyone data. I mean, how many people in this town know that the city of Fresno last year sold water and made $1.6 million off some water that they sold to a West Side district,
Not too many.
who were given the ability to go make money on top of that money.
Right.
And we don't know how much money they made on that money. So
Right.
1.6 they bought it for, they could have sold it for 5.8 or 10.7. We don't know.
The water fund is a big money generator here in the city of Fresno. That's all I got to say. You just got to look at the comprehensive annual financial report. You'll find out it generates a lot of money.
It does, and our enterprise accounts are healthy. When they get close to the bottom of what they call reserves, they like to keep around $14 million, $14.5 million in the reserve on a constant basis, always. So that means whatever they do at the end of the year, there's going to be enough in that reserve for next year's, and they keep collecting it.
At least $14 million, folks.
And remember, they borrowed out of that fund for the stadium and other things. They just throw IOUs in there.
Right. Internal borrowing is what they call it.
Right.
They call it internal debt.
And then they go take a snapshot once a year for the comprehensive annual financial report by moving everything back for 1 instant, 1 millisecond. Take a picture of it, and then everything goes back to out of sync, so to speak. Cities have that kind of complexity. Government agencies have that complexity. I'm not saying that that's a sin or a bad thing, but the fact of it is, when you owe that kind of money to yourself and it shows up to the people who are going to look at you to pay off your debts, they start scratching their heads and say, well, wait a minute, you owe yourself all this money, how are you going to pay it back? So that they're trying to shore that up. The mayor made her State of the City message the other day saying that she's going to close that loop, that differential between what they owe out of that fund and what the gap is. It's a big gap, like $250 million.
So talking about money, so so since they've repealed it, how much money are the Fresnans, the people of the city of Fresno, going to save from this repeal, at least in the next 6 months? How much are they going to save kind of in money?
Well, you'll save immediately if you have a 1-inch pipe, something like, let's see, that's about $18. I figure that's a minimum you'll save. Then you'll have your water flow goes down quite a bit per gallon use. So I'm estimating the average house will probably save anywhere in the next 6 months $35 to $50 if they just use the water in the way that they used to use the water as prior to 2013. People have cut back so much when they got burnt by the rate increases that I'm hoping they go back to water their yards a little bit more now, since it's pre-rate increase on August 15th, 2013.
And just
things weren't so bad.
And just to remind, and so we're in this drought right now, and so you're talking about watering the lawns, and people are like going, no, that's extremely bad. But just to remind them about how much water is in the aquifer underneath our feet. You around average.
Well, I mean, it's Department of Water Resources estimates that there's 93 million acre feet under our feet in this basin. It's called the King Subbasin. 93 million acre feet being fed on a constant flow by the Sierra Nevadas every year on an average of 20 million acre feet a year. Average. Drought to deluge of water coming down. So that's an average. Doesn't mean we should waste it. Doesn't mean we should really try to figure out how to conserve and adjudicate our water to the point where we have long-term goals. I'm all for that. But I don't think we ought to live like we have just a new Soviet bloc nation here. With we're going to put on drab stuff and walk around like the world's coming in. It's not, folks. We got a healthy community. We ought to enjoy it. And when they start comparing Fresno with coastal areas, look how much they pay for water, and look how much you don't pay for water. And I'm going to say, well, look how much I pay for air conditioning and how much you don't pay for air conditioning. So if you want to trade bills there for a while, we'll do that. Why shouldn't we enjoy what God gave us? God didn't give you a lot of water over there, and you're having to pay for it like almost like you're buying it out of a bottled water dispenser.
Yeah.
we don't have that problem here. Doesn't mean we should waste it, doesn't mean we want to go down the curve, doesn't mean we should try to do drought-tolerant plants and stuff like that where we want and need to.
But you can water the lawn maybe 3 times a week.
Yeah.
You'd be okay.
And you know something, I would think it'd be better for Fresnons, because a lot of people don't have automatic sprinkler systems,
Uh-huh.
to go 1 hour every day of the week, that you could, every day.
Yeah, every day.
So people who have non-automatic sprinklers can pick a day that they want to go out and water for an hour, and it's done. They don't have to, what day is it? Is it a Sunday? Is it a leap year? Is a frog going over the moon? None of that stuff they have to worry about. And honestly, people would get to it. And you'd have 7 hours a week versus 22 hours a week under the twice-a-week syndrome the city is giving us. And some people have already said, and Mayor Ashley Swearingen said on radio with Mr. Appleton, it'd be okay for you to, as he asked, for you to water twice in that one given day of those 2 days a week. Just water twice.
So that means you get to water twice in those 2
So that
days.
means you get to water early in the morning and late at night, and that means 4 times a week
Yeah, 4 times a week.
versus 3 times a week. And I'm saying, come on, guys, it's all illusionary anyway. Let's figure it out for Fresno. Let's don't try to make it look like we're going to try to satisfy somebody writing an article somewhere else on planet Earth. I want to worry about Fresnons, and I think we have our own solutions. And we're not going to, I think, harm this community by being a little bit more cognizant of the fact that we have some God-given resources available to us.
We're really blessed here in this valley to have this huge aquifer underneath our feet. And
Absolutely.
that's not just you saying that. I read a Fresno Bee article with a journalist who had actually talked with you and done some investigating himself.
Right.
And he wrote an article about this as well, about the large amount of water underneath our feet. It's true. It's not made up. We are a blessed area in the state of California. Other communities are suffering. They only get surface water. So it's different throughout the state where you go.
And unlike the west sides of our valley, and a little bit north and a little bit west, where they have this clay layer strata, we don't have a clay layer strata. There you hear about the subsidence, where you drain water out of an area in between 2 clay layers, and the clay layers will compact. Where we are on the east side of the valley, it's a sand, gravel, big boulder combination of things that go down over 1,000 feet. They're not even sure how deep it goes. And they're not even sure really what the interaction is between all the water sources and how it recalibrates itself. They don't even know.
They're not sure of the behavior of how it acts.
They don't. And USGS even admits it. They don't have enough money to study it. Yet we have the people in certain places in this community dictating like they wrote the script from on high.
They can see right through the ground.
Right.
And they go, there's only this many gallons.
It's not uncommon. Years ago, when I was on the state air board, we did studies for the air because we didn't understand it. And we went to the federal government. We said, we need money to do studies because we don't understand our air interaction with stuff coming over the mountains from the coast, from San Francisco Bay and et cetera, how it interacts with the stuff we produce and all that good stuff. We need studies to understand it. So they gave us a bunch of money. We did a bunch of studies. I'd like to see this community with the other players in this valley go to with the state of California and go to the federal government and say, we need lots of money. So we need lots of money to go study what this water is doing. Give your USGS folks ample amounts of research capability so they can really tell us how malleable, how recoverable.
Yeah.
I know that there's been tests by other irrigation districts where they just shut down a well for just a little while and it recovered.
Yeah, wow.
And it's like an oscillating kind of thing. Recover, and then they take it down.
Gets down. And it goes
and
down
so you oscillate around because it has a recoverable capability to it.
Things are complex, folks. It's not just a one-dimensional picture that the media gives you day in, day out. Things are way more complex, and this is the beauty of this world. Things are complex. We need to understand them. And so before we go into the next segment, well, actually, we're just going to keep on going. But before we go on any further, I'd really like to mention, please, Mr. Vagim and the supporters of Measure W really could use your help, could use some donations. We donate to, people donate to the American Cancer Society, people donate to all kinds of causes, but donating to this cause right here at home really does help, and will help a local individual here. And it'll help us here in the city of Fresno. So if you can, go to lowerwaterbill.com